duty, honor, country dictate what you ought to be, what you can be, what you will be.
The destiny of man is not measured by material computations. When great forces are on the move in the world, we learn we're spirits, not animals.
Now, we are the masters of our fate.
Howdy, gents. Welcome back to another episode of the Wolf and Iron Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Yarborough, founder and curator of wolfandiron.com. And fellas, I'm glad you're here. You're tuning in to another great episode here on the Wolf and Iron Podcast. I'm talking with my friend Tommy Baker. He's the founder of Resist Average Academy, and he's written a great book, guys. It's called The Leap of Your Life, and it's all about putting yourself out there, doing that thing that you know in your gut you should do, and living a life that doesn't have, it's just not filled with regrets. I mentioned one time in a previous episode, I had heard a saying, which was something along the lines of, you know, hell on earth is being there at your deathbed and then seeing the man you could have been, right? You're laying there, you're on, you know, the last weeks of your life, maybe you're just on the last months of your life, and in walks the guy you could have been. You know, what does he look like? What is he acting like? What is his family story like? You know, what are the things he said yes to? What are the things he said no to, right? And we don't want that. And there are far too many men out there that are living well below their potential. Maybe that's you. And look, guys, I don't want you to be like that. I want you to live up to your full potential. I love it when Jesus says that he came to give you life and life to the fullest. That's not a health and wealth thing. I think he just wants good for you. And I think that there are plans laid out for you guys, if you're willing to take them, that will radically change your story. It'll radically change your legacy. And so Tommy's book just does a great job calling out just how to kind of walk through that, overcoming just this negative mindset that we sometimes have, these things that hold us back. It's just being mindful in a lot of ways. How do we redefine risk and stop waiting for just, you know, this someday I'll do that thing, right? How to take action when you have that inspirational moment. The thought comes to you. You're out walking the dog, or you're out, walking in a park or doing something, and you just have this moment of clarity. Like, this is something that I need to be doing. This is something that I need to be about. I need to move. I need to change. I need to change careers. I need to ask that girl out, whatever the case is. How do you take action on those things? So this is a great conversation coming up here. And so I want you guys to check this book out. I want you to get in touch with Tommy. You can head over to wolfandiron.com/Tommy Baker. And it's just spelled exactly like you would think it would be, wolfandiron.com/Tommy Baker. And you'll see all the links out there to how to get in touch with him, how to get his book. And then without further ado, here's my friend, Tommy. All right, fellas, we got Tommy Baker here from Resist Average Academy. Hey, man, welcome to the podcast. I'm glad to have you here.
Mike, thanks so much for having me. Love what you're doing and excited to be here.
So I was telling you a little bit before we started the podcast officially that I've been following you for a while, and I've been seeing you kind of, you know, climb and escalate. And we're going to be talking a lot about taking the leap of your life. That's your new book. That's The Leap of Your Life, the book that you've come out with. And it's all about just taking that step forward into that thing, that unknown thing that you really are called to do, that thing that you really want to do. We'll unpack all that in a bit. But I've been following you. I've been following a couple of other guys over the last few years as Wolf and Iron's kind of been on the scene. And we just kind of make natural connections with other people who are kind of in the same vein of just helping people progress in their lives. And it's just been really cool to see you take off, man, just to see things, you know, go well, and to just to kind of see you kind of climb up there, you know, both in terms of influence and reach and all that kind of stuff, but just that you're doing it, that you're making it happen. So congratulations on that. And, I hope to just kind of see that continue over the years.
Thanks, man. And it's been a fun journey. And I always tell people that on the path of growth, you know, it's the path of most resistance that leads to the path of least resistance later on. And in life, what we can fall into, and the trap that I fell in before all of this, was seeking the path of least resistance today. But ultimately, when we do that, it's only a matter of time when the path of most resistance shows up. And what do I mean by that? It's going to be, we're going to be stuck in a career that we don't like. We're going to be in a relationship that's toxic. We're going to be feeling like a lack of confidence, or like we're just like there's no path for us. We're not excited about our path. And so to me, it's like the moment that I was able to shift out of, okay, let me just wait for the challenge of life to crumble me, versus let me go seek the challenge mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually every single day, whatever that means for me. that was a stark difference, and that creates momentum in our lives. And I think all of us have felt momentum, and when we have momentum, it's like things are just, they're not effortless, but they become easier, and the horizon is more exciting. And when we're out of momentum, we feel like we're never going to get it back, and we feel like stuck and anchored. And I always want to be feeling in momentum, but then it becomes my responsibility to create it.
Yeah, that's good. No, I kind of liken it too, and I think we've all felt this in our lives. It's sort of like you're either, just cruising down the highway, 90 miles an hour, whatever, 75 miles an hour will be within speed limits maybe. But you're cruising down the highway and it just seems effortless. And this is just, you're just doing life and you're doing your thing. You're in the zone, you're working in your skills and your passions and your values. But then there's other times when you get asked to do things or work things that are not in that, in line with your skills, values, passions. And it feels just like you're just going 15 miles an hour uphill, just trucking the whole way. And it's just awful. And we all want to be in that space where we just come in and we just crush it every single day. Now life's not like that 100%, but we want to be, more aligned with that. And I understand, I've been there for the last few years myself, as you're saying, that it is a different experience to feel like you have this momentum behind you. You've got wind in your sails and the things that you do, it's like, I'm meant to do this. And that's such a good feeling.
Yeah, and I like to separate life into 3 possible stages. Just very generally, it's like we can be in a state of survival, which is, we're just trying to make it through the day, Mike. We're just trying to make it through the week. We have urgency and we're putting out fires all the time, and we're just perpetually in a state of burnout. So that's survival. In survival, if you win, then I lose. And if I win, then you lose. It's kind of this scarcity, zero-sum game. And then we have comfort, which is where a lot of people are. And comfort is, we don't have the fires of survival. Yeah. But nothing on the horizon is exciting us. There's no challenge. We feel like life has lost some color. It feels gray. We say things like, "Hey, things are okay, Mike. Things are kind of fine. I guess it's okay." We're kind of in this weird state where like nothing is exciting us. And then lastly is what we're talking about here over the last few minutes, which is a state of thriving. And in the state of thriving, it's like, okay, I'm seeking the challenge every day. My life is integrated and growing. I actually seek challenge and adversity because those become opportunities to grow faster and continue to be in a state of thriving. Now, when you're in a state of thriving, again, it doesn't mean the work is done. It means that you got to keep doing the things that got you there to create that momentum. Yep. But you see it with a different perspective. And so, I'm always, looking through my content and the things that I do in the books, I'm trying to really get people out of a state of survival for sure, because that's debilitating. And I'm looking to take people out of a state of comfort because that's debilitating in a different way. But the hardest place to change from is not survival, because in survival, we have a lot of real world reasons to change today. The hardest place to change from is comfort. And that's where a lot of people find themselves today.
So one of the things that we do over at the Side Hustle Switch, we've done a little bit at the Wolf and Iron as well. But we've got this little mini course called Finding Your Purpose. And it really starts out with me kind of talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And kind of, at the bottom there, you've got that, where you just got to survive. You got to have shelter, you got to have food, you got to have the basic things. And then in the middle, somewhere there's like relationships and some of the things that a lot of us are obtaining now. And then at the very top, there's self-actualization. That's kind of like what Maslow says, like this is we're trying to attain to something greater. But what happens is, and I think what you're saying is, and I don't know if Maslow ever talked about this, but one of the things I see is as we climb the pyramid and things get easier, we just stop climbing. And we just say, hey, things are good, things are okay. But one of the things that you point out in your book that I love is that there's something nagging you saying, it's not okay. There's something nagging me that says, it's not okay, Mike. There's more to be done. There's something else out there that you should be doing that's more than just you've got your safety, you've got your shelter, you've got your relationships. There's something else out there. What is that thing? And so we're going to be talking here about The Leap of Your Life. That's your new book. And it's just fantastic. And I don't compliment people on their books just because they come on the show, because if they wrote a terrible book, we just talk about something else.
I like that.
Well, some people do. They write a book just to have it out there, and they're like, okay, I got a book now. But the book is like, okay, you just threw this thing together, or somebody ghost wrote it for you. But one of the things I really like about this, and for you guys who are listening, you haven't read the book yet, you need to go check it out. The book is very well put together. Visually, the book is very appealing, just in terms of how it's laid out. I'm a very visual kind of guy. And then there's summary and action steps and stuff at the end. But this is one of those books that you can read chapter by chapter. You could read it, half a chapter. You're just going to get a lot out of it. So, I really want to dive into kind of what made you decide to go from, you've got Resist Average Academy. What made you decide to put some of this information into a book? And then even tell me maybe, how long did it take you to write this thing? Because it seems like a pretty intensive, piece of work.
Absolutely, man. And I appreciate that. And I agree, to me, too often these days, books have become, they say the books are the new business card. And I say, I throw away business cards. So I don't want to throw away your books. If you're going to do work, let's put some quality into it. Now, with that said, my first book compared to my third, very different in terms of quality. So, but that's the game of growth. But so I really appreciate that compliment. In terms of the something is missing. So this is like a voice that we get when life has slowed down, when we have some moments to breathe. Sometimes it happens in the morning, sometimes at night, sometimes if we're on a trip and we're on the airplane and we just get that moment where it's like, I can actually have some perspective on my life. The something is missing, or I'm meant for more, or I'm on the wrong path. That's just what I call some untapped potential. And, I love that you reference Maslow, because to me, the purpose of why we're here is to grow. I mean, we're growing, our cells right now, trillions of cells are growing. So are massive planets growing. Everything is growing. And if we're not growing, then that's when we start to feel the stagnation. That's when we start to feel like we're literally dying. And that's when those voices start to come in. So the reason that I wrote the book, Mike, was because I spend a lot of time in this space. Obviously, this is my purpose. This is what lights me up. I'm constantly having conversations with people who want to do something. They have an idea. They have an insight over something that has to change, an environment they need to leave, a business they need to launch, a podcast they need to create, whatever it may be. There's a laundry list.
Yeah.
And then what happens next is that they fill that with the reasons why they can't do it right now. So they'll say things like, I don't feel ready. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. My spouse is this, the kids are doing that. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. And it's my belief that we're not lacking clarity. Like in our heart of hearts, we're not lacking clarity.
Right.
We're lacking what happens next. And as in these moments where we have clarity about how something needs to change, we have 100% certainty in those specific snapshot moments.
Yeah.
But every minute after, we start to lose that certainty. Right. And we've all had this. We all had an idea for a business or something that we wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And in the moment, we're like, this has to happen. We're going to do it. And 3 months later, I ask you about it and you're like, oh, yeah, that thing. And then we come up with some excuse. And so I wanted to write the book because, frankly, I was tired of hearing this. Because I believe in people's potentials. Now, mind you, I used to be this person, too. And I can still catch myself in these circumstances. So I wrote it for my old self, but I also wrote it for the people out there who I know are capable of doing it, who I know can impact themselves, their families, their spouses, their children, their small communities, virtual communities. I just know that they can do it, but they're holding themselves back. And I wanted them to release all the obstacles in the way and start taking that first step. And I know when we take that first step, then we start to create momentum. Then we start to create belief instead of waiting around for those things.
Man, yeah, that's awesome. And you've done a great job of calling that out. And I think this is an area where, a lot of guys struggle, both in terms of self-doubt. They don't have enough self-compassion, or they've got too much self-compassion, and they're not kicking themselves in the pants enough to get out there and do that thing, which you talked about a second ago, about having that sort of inspirational moment of clarity. This is what needs to happen. This is the thing that I'm going to do. You're out kayaking, for the first time and however long. You're out taking a walk with the dog or whatever the case, and it comes to you, boom, and it hits you. And in that moment of clarity, that's when you really need to act. And what would you recommend for guys to do in that moment? Like they've got that inspirational moment. How do they make good on that so that it doesn't go by and it's just another thing? And then it's a product that they thought of, and then they see it on the shelves a year later by somebody else, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the thing that I advise is the moment that you get that clarity, how fast can you do the simplest possible action to start creating some momentum? And I call this the 24-hour principle. And even if you're listening to this podcast and you get some value from the conversation with Mike and I, within 24 hours, that one thing that connected, what are you going to do about it to make it real, to get it out of your head? Because in our heads, we have 50, 60, sometimes 70,000 thoughts a day. And that's chaos. And we're never going to find clarity in the chaos. We'll never find clarity in the noise. But the moment that you get it out of your head and you start moving towards it, that's when it starts to become real in your mind. And even if it's small, I'll give you a simple example. Years ago, when I knew I had to change my environment, I had to move from New York City to Phoenix, Arizona. I was running a business. I had 12 employees. I had all of the reasons to be anchored, and I had a calling. I had a desire to move out west, to find some space, to get out of to get out of the city, to get out of that intensity. And all I could do that night, the moment that I really got the clarity, standing on this empty field on New Year's Eve in 2014, I couldn't really do much, Mike, but I could do one thing.
Yeah.
And I just changed the background on my phone to an Arizona sunset. And I know that sounds so simple and might sound dumb, but that alone, the next day, instead of that insight becoming a fading memory, I started to look at it 100 times a day, or however many times we pick up our phones. And that started to remind me of that clarity, because we forget sometimes how powerful our clarity is. And then we brush it off and we're like, yeah, that's never going to happen. And then logic and reasoning and our heads start to take over, when the whole time we knew what we had to do. So keep it simple. Just do something, change something, and that's when the momentum starts to come.
And I want to redefine a little bit about what we're talking about when we say clarity, because I think even that term, I may have brought it up, but when you have that term in your head, you're thinking, oh, I've got to be really clear. I've got to have that moment of, 90% inspiration where I know just exactly like how all the pieces are going to go. And it's like, we're not Einstein here. Like, it doesn't happen like that. I'll tell you guys, from my, so I used to be a software developer, before I got into being an entrepreneur and all the stuff that I do now. And we would literally start projects, these massive multi-million-dollar projects for customers, when we knew about 40% of what we needed to know to get started. And that became just sort of routine. And we would tell the customers, we got about 40% of what we need just to get started. There's going to be a lot of unknowns here, but let's just jump in. And here's the thing, guys, is that we made that commitment to that customer. The customer made a commitment to us. They're saying, we're going to start paying you serious money, even when you only know about 40% of what you need to do. And as we got into it, what would happen is we would gain more clarity. Okay, now we're about 60%, on just this one piece of it. Oh, now we're about 80% on just this one piece of, a small part of this overall, large, the project that we're working on. And then we'd work on that piece as we had more clarity. And so I don't want you guys to think, and I know this isn't what either of us are saying, but I don't want the guys to think, oh, I've got to have some sort of grand epiphany. Shekinah glory comes down, shines upon me, the road opens up, and I see all my future. It doesn't work like that. It is really just like a feeling that you get of like, this is something important. I need to pay attention to this, and then you act on it.
Yes, and I like that you said that, because I call this the myth of clarity. And just like you said, there's a myth out there that you need to have every step of your path laid out and detailed in advance. And if you're going to wait for that, you're going to be waiting forever, because it doesn't exist. I'm here to remind you that you're not supposed to know every step of the path. That's the whole purpose of leaving our comfort zones to do something that we haven't done. If we knew every step, if we knew every step, it would either tell me we're not thinking big and bold enough and stretching our comfort zones, or it's simply not our path. It's somebody else's path that they've superimposed on ours. And we're not living to our true principles. So I want to release that pressure. I think it's a great point. You're not supposed to know every step. I say when you know the what, the what is just having a general direction, a North Star of where you're going.
Yep.
You know the why. What does that matter to you? What's going to get you up in the morning? What's going to get you going through adversity and some of the challenges through that journey? And then when you have clarity on the first few steps, then the how will start to reveal itself. And that's an amazing process, but waiting for the how to reveal itself means you'll be waiting forever.
And I think that's so good. I mean, that's, part of this moving forward is a lot of times what you get in that moment of clarity, as we're saying it, is really a vision for the future, just some kind of vision, a blurry vision, but there's a sense in your heart like that I will be happy. I will find some kind of fulfillment when I achieve this thing. And it just kind of, nobody knows about this. I'm going to tell you kind of like a little secret prototype thing that we're doing with Rustic in Maine right now. Awesome. And I'll just kind of walking through like how we just kind of come up with ideas and we just pursue them. So we've got these amazing wooden rings that we create out of all kinds of cool, woods and stuff like that, historic things, whiskey barrels and rifle stocks and all kinds of cool stuff. And that's kind of our main baby. And those sell like crazy, and we're just busting at the seams trying to grow. And it's a lot of fun. But about a year and a half ago, we had the idea to do a leather ring, and we wanted to do something that really competes with like the silicone rings out there, right?
Yes.
But we want something that's more rustic, something that's, like it's not silicone. To me, silicone is like what you use when you're cooking, or something that's like, kitchen mitts or something made out of silicone.
Sure.
Or like men wear leather. That's how I'm thinking. So we got the idea of what, how these leather rings work. I know zero about leather. And even though now we're pretty close, we've got a little bit of a prototype going on, and we're hoping to maybe launch in July if these things actually pan out. but I don't know a lot about leather, but I know what I want the end result to be. And so I'm talking to the leather people like an idiot. Like, I'm like, hey, I need leather that's this thick and looks like this. I don't know what that's called. What do you guys call that? Right. And we're doing these translations. So I had the end result in my mind, which was probably about, 40%, if that, of what I want, what I needed to know to make this happen. But we started on it, and it's just been iteration after iteration of just, trial and error and seeing kind of what works. And so, but that's how you start, guys. You don't have to have it all together. You just have a vision for something, some area in your life that you want to move towards, and you just start putting it together. You just believe in yourself enough to take that next step.
Exactly. And it takes courage. And let's be honest, it's anytime we're doing something we haven't done, we're going to brush up against our emotional edges. And that's when most people give up. It's not because of the obstacles in the way. It's because our emotional edges, it feels like too unknown, too risky. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I might fall on my face. I don't know what they're going to say.
Yep.
And that's when we give up. And my challenge for anybody listening is to look at those emotional edges as an opportunity for you to grow, because you're going to find out so much about yourself. I know for you, Mike, I'm sure launching all of these brands and businesses on your own, I mean, you've learned so much about yourself, which is translated into every area of your life by pushing your emotional edges, by starting before you felt 100% ready, by taking the courageous action of putting yourself out there. And that to me is what we're here for.
And I think there's an aspect where we want to get callous to it a bit, right? The what if I fail? What if I screw up? What if I fall flat on my face? The more calloused you get to that, the quicker you can fail through things and actually progress in a lot of areas. You're going to find that thing that really puts the wind in your sails.
Exactly.
So there's a bold statement that you start the book out with, kind of in the introduction area, and that you talk about how the leap that guys are not taking, or people in general, but we're speaking to men mostly here, the leap that you're not taking is killing you. And I think that we can say that in a kind of a figurative place. I think maybe it actually is really killing men. I think a lot of guys are really dying because they're not moving towards that thing that they need to be moving towards. But can you expound on this notion a little bit about how it's just, what does that mean to you when you say that leap that you're not taking is just killing you?
Absolutely. And I just call this the pain of untapped potential. And so when, deep down, when we get rid of the BS, when we get rid of the armor and the layers and the stories and the narratives and all the beliefs and identities that we cling on to, we know we're capable of something greater than we're currently experiencing. Yep. We know that we're meant for more and that we're able to do that. Not out of a place of lack, but of a place of just owning our value, owning what we're capable, owning our creative energy. The problem is that when we fall out of alignment with that and we don't move towards that and we don't honor that and we don't share that, we start to accumulate what I call the pain of untapped potential. And there's a direct feedback mechanism that when the pain of untapped potential is high, we find ourselves finding ways to soothe that. One of the ways that we soothe that is that I always say, the pain of untapped potential leads to destructive habits. Personal habits, physical habits, mental habits, relationship habits. It just leads to behaviors that come out of a frustration that's much deeper than we think. And this is when we start to treat our bodies poorly. This is when we start to treat the most important people in our life poorly.
Yep.
We start to treat ourselves poorly. It just leads to destruction. And to your point, some men take this to extreme. It could lead to destructive habits externally, like hurting people. And so this is what I mean by this, that it's killing our life force. It's killing our enthusiasm. It's killing for men what it feels like to be alive and to be challenged and to face the challenge and overcome the challenges and all of that stuff. And then we wake up and all of that is gone. And so I say it's like we're the Walking Dead. And there's a chapter in the book, chapter 3, it's called Life Unlived. And I quoted a real story or real account of a 46-year-old man who he posted this publicly on Reddit of all places. But it's one of the most powerful posts that I've ever seen, because he's writing it and looking back at all the things that he didn't do, all the things that he really regretted, all the moments that he had an opportunity to do something. And now he looks around and, his wife is cheating on him. He just missed his dad's funeral. He has no connection to his kids. Yep. He's been a banker for 25 years and something he hated. When he set out a vision, 20 years ago, he had visited 3 places. He said he was going to visit I don't know how many countries, and then he still has only visited 3 places. He had started a book. He's on the same page in that book. And it's a powerful story to remind ourselves that if we don't act on it now, time is going to pass, and we can find ourselves waking up 3, 5, 10 years down the line feeling those same feelings. Now, in the book, I tell John, which is his username, I tell him, hey, man, it's never too late. And this has inspired me and inspired a lot of people, and it caused a tiny viral uproar on Reddit because people really connected with it. So it's never too late, but in life we have these windows of opportunity. If we miss those windows, we never know what could have been. So my encouragement is, to do it now and to stop waiting. And even if that means the simplest possible step.
There's a big connection between the winning mindset, the guy who really believes that he's winning in life and doing well, not from an egotistical, he's faking himself out, he's putting on the bro kind of mask or anything like that. No, he realizes that there are areas in life where he's doing good work, he's being of value, he's staying strong to his own commitments, his own values and ideals and stuff like that. John wasn't in that place. But there's a strong connection between testosterone increasing in men, which has a lot to do with our feeling like men, being healthy as men, good mindset, lowers depression, all this other kind of stuff, and us actually winning in life. And so I imagine that if you're walking around going, there are all these things that I wish I was, there are all these things that I know I could be, but if I had just taken that chance, if I had just said yes to that job, if I had just said yes to that girl, if I had just, went over there and asked her out, whatever that case, you can have all these things. And whether you're thinking about it actively or not, subconsciously, there's a part of you that says, I'm not winning in the area that I'm really called most to win in. And that's going to do a lot of harm to you. And like you said, that's going to lead to a lot of destructive behaviors.
Yeah. And you talked about regret, and, I spoke to some of the best researchers in just the realm of regret to write the book. And what they told me was actually really surprising. They said, Tommy, regret can be one of the most destructive emotions. It can lead to depression, anxiety, stress, despair, hopelessness, apathy, all of that stuff. But then they also said, but it can also be the most hopeful emotion that we experience. And the difference is that if we can use our prior regret, so moments that we didn't do it, moments that we didn't tell someone how we felt, moments that we missed out on something, we can use that to make new decisions in the future to make sure that doesn't happen again. And that's when regret becomes super hopeful. So we all have regrets. My question is, how are we using those? Are we using those as baggage to stay anchored to the past, which is going to create a very predictable and not so great future? Yeah. Or can we use them as leverage points to make new decisions today? Because either way, like knowing that we didn't do something, that's a form of clarity that helps us do something new in the future. And so often we're trying to create change, or we're hoping for change by doing the same exact things. So we have to change something and start using regret to our advantage.
And even that, what you're talking about there is taking that mindset and shifting it, flipping it really, and saying, okay, I've got these past things that I wish I had done. Let's be a little stoic about them, kind of put them on the table and evaluate them and say, am I going to let those things just tear me down for the rest of my life and keep me where I am, which you just mentioned is not going to be good for you? Or am I going to look at these things and say, can I use this to propel me forward because it's a mistake I don't want to repeat? And if you can do that, now you begin to see past failures or missed opportunities as lessons. And if they're lessons, well, that's something that you're learning from. And if you're learning, then you're winning. And if you're winning, then your testosterone goes up. You start to feel like a man, and things are, trekking. So it really is a mindset shift. And your book just goes through this so well. And one of the things that you really call out is just this reframing of these negative beliefs. So I was hoping that you could maybe pick some of these, because I know a lot of guys are struggling with this. They've got regrets. Maybe they haven't listed them all out like John did in the Reddit post there, but they've got these regrets and things they wish they had done, paths they wish they had taken. Maybe they wish they'd finished college or gone to college or whatever the case is, or not gone to college and not gotten in debt. But whatever it happens to be, that ends up forming certain belief systems, and then those belief systems become kind of connected to whether we move forward or we don't. But help us to kind of reframe some of these and maybe call a few of these out.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, the great thing about beliefs is that we can, I always separate beliefs into 2 buckets, really. Is this belief, and whatever that belief may be, is this actually serving the places that I want to go, or is this not serving the place I want to go? And I know that sounds so rudimentary and so simple. And so one of the things that I like to do with myself and some of the clients that I work with is to really just get some of our beliefs on inventory, because the thing is that beliefs, if they're not examined, they become kind of like this autopilot, and they begin to own our lives, and we never have the awareness of them, or we just have a very small awareness, and that's not enough to change them. So one of the things that I like to do is really simple. I just do a plus or a minus, and I draw a line down the middle, and I say, okay, what does my life right now demonstrate that are some of my beliefs that are actually serving me? And so I'll go right down the list. Belief that's serving me. Then I look at all the ones that aren't serving me, the negative ones. I list them right down. And then I just ask myself a simple question. What can I do? What can I change? What can I let go of on the right hand of the page? Whose belief is this? How did I get it? Is it still true? And in a moment, we can say, you know what? This is no longer serving me. I'm going to double down on the things that are serving me. And when we double down on the things that are serving us, we immediately have less space for the things that aren't serving us. And that's when we begin to transform this. And so we all have beliefs. The question is, are they serving us or are they not serving us?
So a guy, let's say he becomes a little bit more mindful about how he thinks, right? He's written these beliefs out. He's he's watching for when his subconscious or when his mind just says, you can't do that. That you're not good at those types of things. That, you're not one of those guys that's going to make money. You're not one of those guys that's going to get married and have kids and that kind of, whatever the negative beliefs are, they're holding him back. So he's listening for these things. He hears them. What does he do? Like, how does he correct his thinking on these things?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first step, and just like you mentioned, is just being able to be aware of that. To like just take a moment and become the person that's observing the actions or the beliefs in action, and just taking a pause, just a small pause. And that pause could be like a fraction of a second. This is why, to me, mindfulness practices and nature and just spending time unplugged from devices is so crucial, because we're able to train our brain to see the small windows of opportunity where we're falling into autopilot mode. So step number one is awareness. And step number two is just asking a question. Is this ultimately going to serve the things that I want? Like simple examples in relationships, like the moment right before you're going to say something that's going to lead down a road of negativity. It's like, can you stop for a second? And like we've all caught ourselves there. Can you stop for a second instead of letting the ego win? Can you just take a moment and exhale and stop and catch yourself? And so to me, it's okay. We got the awareness. We ask the question, is this serving? Is this not serving? And then the last one is like, okay, so what would be one way that I could disprove that belief? So if somebody says, Tommy, I can't launch my own business because, I don't know how, or I can't because I failed at my last business, then I would look at that and I would find a way to disprove that. Okay, where did you actually win? Where did you experience some wins in your prior business? And people say, well, I didn't, Tommy. That's the whole reason.
Right. Yeah.
Right? And I'll say, well, we got to dig deeper. Right. And I'll start to collect evidence on the positive side. See, what we do with our beliefs is that we stack evidence for all the reasons why those are true on the negative side. I failed at this. I didn't do that. I got broken up with. I mean, all of this stuff. I mean, it's ridiculous what we come up with, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And then what I do is stack on the positive, stack on the reverse belief. I can't do this. Oh, I can do this. And here's why. I've done it here. I've done it here. I've done it here. And we're four-dimensional men. We have so many different areas of life. And so to me, if you've shown that you're able to be disciplined and successful in your relationships, then that just gives me proof that you're able to do it in your business. If you have shown prior business success, then I know you can be physically successful. And so it's like the same tools and the same ingredients. And that's how I would start reframing people's beliefs, so they're actually working for them and working on autopilot towards what we want, not what we don't want. I remember meeting a pilot a few years ago when I was on a trip. And I have this obsession with planes, and I was like so excited to like talk to like this pilot. She was a private pilot. She would drive she would fly G5s, like these amazing private planes. Yeah. And I thought it was going to be like the most riveting conversation, Mike. And then we were talking, and she said, you know what? I only fly the plane about 2% of the time. The rest of the time is autopilot. She's like, it's quite boring. And it was a great metaphor for our beliefs and our habits and all the subconscious stuff that we don't think about. If we can put those to work for us, then we have more bandwidth and capacity and more just energy in general to double down on those and do other things that we know are going to move us forward.
Yeah, and that's a great analogy, because a lot of guys are operating on autopilot now, and it's these past beliefs that they formed when they were kids or whenever it happened to be, failed marriages, the kids got ticked off at them, they got fired from their job, their business failed, whatever the case is. They form these belief systems that have just kind of innately formed. You need to think about it. You need to try to form these things. I suck. Nobody tries to form that, belief system. But it's now they're operating on autopilot with that. And so it is, like you said, it's just reframing that mind, bringing it to awareness and allowing, our frontal cortex to kind of do some work there and actually deal with some of these things and make decisions about how we think. And so I think it's really powerful. I mean, and like you said, just that very first step, bringing it to light, taking that breath, taking that moment, and just that alone actually is huge in helping us reframe the way we think about ourselves and the right moment, just getting the right frame of mind.
Absolutely.
There's another part in the book that I really liked, and I thought this was good. And it's, I'll give a little bit more backstory here in a second. I want to hear your answer on this. You talk about making a declaration. So we talk about, when we start out the podcast, we're talking about the guy gets inspiration, like let's say it's me or it's you. I got inspiration for Wolf and Iron, and you got inspiration for, the Resist Average Academy. And we're supposed to go out and make a declaration of some kind. This is what I'm going to be. This is who I'm going to be. This is the things that I'm going to be doing a year from now, 6 months from now, or whatever. And we go and we tell people. And why is that so important? Because I think it's important too. And I think the guys who are serious about things will do that. A lot of people won't do it. But why is that? Why is that such an important step?
Absolutely. And the declaration is really, I say too often people have dreams in secret. They have goals and things that they want to create, but it's all secret. And it's harbored inside. And it's like, it can be so hard to like let that out. I work with a lot of people, and it's like they know what they want to do, but they put so many layers on it, and they feel self-conscious about even declaring that, because it's like now you're on the line. But that's exactly why it's powerful. The moment that you declare it, the moment that you make a commitment, and a commitment is binary, like you're 100% committed, but if you're 98.5, then you might as well be 0.
Yeah, right.
And the moment that you make a declaration, it's like you're actually putting yourself on the line. You're going from just being a secret dreamer, it's someone who gets insights and never acts on them, to actually putting yourself on the line. And that in itself, like the act of declaring first to oneself, because obviously that's the first step, but then to somebody else, just increases the level of accountability. It puts it out into the ecosphere, and now it's much more real. It's no longer something that we hid in a little box inside of us, and we only open it when it feels safe. Now it's real, and if you declare it, when you declare it, you'll know it's the wrong people, the wrong tribe, the wrong associates when they start telling you all the reasons why that's not going to happen. And you have to have the courage to be able to listen to that, because you're not always going to get great feedback, and keep going anyways. Like, never let that bring you down. But you'll know it's the right tribe when they say, Mike, how can I support that? Mike, when are you going to get that done by?
Yes.
All of that stuff. Are you sure you need 6 months to launch that? I think you can do that in 3, right? And that's when you know it's the right time. So declaration is crucial. When you dream in secret, you never bring those to life, because like you start to lose the clarity because it's so wrapped inside of you. Mm-hmm. You need to let it out into the world. You need to declare it to somebody, declare it to the people that are going to support you, and put yourself on the line.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I want to add some nuances to this. As I was reading the book, I was thinking, I got just little ideas kind of popped into my head. One is that when we speak things, you know this because you do a podcast and, you speak all the time, and I do as well. When you speak things, it wires our brain differently. If you're going to learn something, there's one thing to be a student and to learn something. There's another thing to be a teacher, but there's also something about just saying the words out in the open and putting it out there. It actually rewires our brain. So we homeschool, and one of the things that we like to have our kids do, we don't have them write book reports and that kind of stuff. We have them narrate back to us what they've read. And so if they're reading a book, we don't just say, go type up a book report and, whatever. We say, we want you to sit down and tell us what it is that you read and what impacted you, what was happening in this chapter and that kind of stuff. And the reason that we do that is because it changes how your brain, functions, and it does kind of, in a sense, make it more concrete to us. Yes. I think we've all seen that. We've either experienced it or we've seen it, where the father of the bride's at the wedding rehearsal, and he's got to give a speech or something like that about his little girl. And he's practiced his speech. He's a big, tough guy. He's written it down on paper. He's rehearsed it. He's got the jokes that are going to slay people and all this other kind of stuff, right? And as soon as this big, tough guy opens his mouth, he can't say it because he's tearing up. He's welling up. His eyes are watering up, and he's crying and bubbling like a little baby. And, and he's doing that because now it's real. Like, now it's real. And guys, there's something like you say, it's absolutely true. There's something about putting it out there that makes it real. And even if you're telling it to some losers that don't get it, you're telling it to yourself. And I think that's so important.
Yeah, and that act alone it's liberating, and then it compels to action. And like we said earlier, that's what's going to create the momentum.
So the other thing that I was going to throw out here was I don't know if I was talking to him in this case or if I sent him an email, but Andy Weir, he was the author of The Martian. Book came out a few years back, was a big hit. Movie came out, was a big hit. And I was asking him about writing, and I said, do you have any tips? I said, I like to write. My son likes to write. Do you have any tips about writing? And one of the things he said was, don't talk about your book. And this is kind of a little nuance here. So on the one hand, we're saying, tell everybody your vision, tell everybody what you're doing, right? But he was basically saying, don't lose your energy in creating these characters, creating this world, writing your story, and just going around talking to people about it. People love to tell what they're going to be doing, right? We love to talk about, right, all the things that are going to happen, over the next year, we're going to be, such and such, and I'm going to do these things. There's a point when you got to stop talking about it and don't put the energy into that. Now you need to start putting the energy into the actual doing. And I just thought that was such a good reminder from him that there is a place where you got to talk about it. You got to put it out there, make that declaration, and then you got to get to work.
Yeah. And so that's a little bit more nuanced, and it's true, Mike, because we see people on Facebook, I'm going to run a marathon. I'm going to write. I've had people tell me they're going to write books every year, and it's 5 years later and they're still at 1,000 words. There's actually some research into this, and you got to be very careful.
Okay.
This is a little bit more nuanced, but there is research from NYU about this, about publicly sharing your goals. Here's what happens, Mike. If I say I'm going to run, let's just say I say I'm going to run a marathon. I've never done anything, I haven't done anything physical in 5 years.
Yeah.
And I put that on social media. People will start congratulating me as if I had already done it. They'll be like, you're so disciplined. You're so amazing. That's so inspiring. I haven't even left the couch yet.
Yeah.
So that validation from a psychological component.
That's the reward, right?
Yeah, that can stop us from actually stepping into it, because part of our brain's like, well, I kind of felt the reward already. What's the point in moving forward? So that's a little more nuanced. My thing would be is I love what the author of the Martian said. Declare your commitments to a small committed tribe.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the best way, and because you don't want to be the person on social media who's making all of this noise. Instead of saying you're going to do the thing on social media, tell a few people about it, do the thing, and then afterwards go to social media and say, check this out.
Yep. That's
and
awesome.
I like, even for me, when I'm like, I didn't tell anyone I was writing this last book for that reason, because I didn't want to fall down that rabbit hole of thinking it was done, or I was further along than I was, or that I was going to lose my focus. I wanted to finish it and then say, hey, I've been kind of working on this thing, even though it kind of meant 80,000 words. But so there's a little bit of a nuance there, but be careful, but declare it to the right people is what I would say.
Also, it looks really cool when all of a sudden you have a book and nobody knew about it, right?
Yeah.
Well, I was just, worked on this book this weekend, and here you go. Yeah.
That's classic. Yeah. Love that.
So one of the things that I think is a really good thing to point out too, is that when we talk about making the leap of your life, we're talking about doing this over and over and over again in a lot of different areas of your life, because there's more than one leap. There's the leap to, a higher paying career, higher paying job, just a totally different career. It could be you're stepping out on your own. You're going to take that side hustle full time, whatever the case is. You're going to get married. You're going to say yes to the girl. There's all these different areas where you get to make a leap. And so the stuff that you're teaching in this book isn't just about and you actually call these different areas out in the book as well. It's not just about one thing. I don't want guys to get brain locked on okay, I've got to figure out what I got to do am I an entrepreneur? I got to find my business. Tell us a little bit more about how this just applies across the board.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, we can, just like you said, we can take leaps in all areas of life. And sometimes we need a leap from a different area of life to create some momentum for the area of life that we really thought was it. So for example, we believe it's like the business is the front focus, but really what's missing is some type of physical leap, some type of adventure leap, some type of relationship leap, even a spiritual leap.
Yeah.
To create that momentum, to create that foundation to ignite that next leap. And so there's all types of leaps that we can take. And how I define leap is just something that's going to stretch us out of our comfort zone. And it's all very relative to where we are. And just like you said, at the end of the day, life is a series of leaps. And life to me is not linear. It's more of like a cyclical game. And each time we go around that cycle represents a new leap and a new area of growth. And so in the book, I split it up into the 4 main leaps, which are the physical leap, which is making a commitment to your physicality, maybe through a new sport or a hobby or a race or running a marathon or a Spartan beast or something that's going to ignite that. The second one, obviously, is the business leap, which, like you said, which is a new career or side hustle or putting yourself out to recruiters or whatever it may be. The third one is the relationship leap, as you discussed. And the relationship leap, just like you said, is maybe reigniting a relationship that you've been in. Maybe it's gathering up a bunch of friends from a social relationships and creating an adventure and experience outside of that. And then lastly, it's the spiritual leap, which is, going inward and kind of taking that more of that spiritual journey and reconnecting to what matters. And so obviously there's a lot of other leaps. You can take an environmental leap, you could take a travel leap, but it's all about pushing the thresholds of our comfort zone and then finding how that ignites us in other areas of life. I've had people who have come to me for business and they took a spiritual leap and their business they came into their business so much more focused on the things that matter, much more grounded as a better leader. And then the results started to take care of themselves. And so you never know what's going to be a spark. But again, going back to the clarity and the insight, start to pay attention to what deep down, what the conversations inside of your head are telling you of what you need. Maybe you need some space. That's a spiritual leap. Maybe you need some time in nature. That's a spiritual leap of sorts. Maybe you do need to make a transition. And when we learn to listen to those, then we benefit from all areas of life with all these different leaps.
Man, that's really good. Really good. And so you guys are, as you're listening to this, I'm just telling you, just got like a small taste of the book here, just a little bit. So if you guys are struggling with, you feel that something on your heart, feel that calling on your life, I want to do more than this, I just don't know what it is. Or maybe you do know what it is, you've got some clarity, but you're not sure about taking that leap. This book is going to help you out. It's The Leap of Your Life by Tommy Baker. And look, man, it's been fantastic to have you on here. It's been a great conversation. I want to close with just one question though for you. And that is, you've been doing some good stuff out there, man. I like what you've got going on. I've told you this at the very beginning. I've been following your stuff, and I think that that you finding your purpose is inspirational for other people finding the things that they want to do, right? Tommy can do it. He's a regular Joe. I can do it too. And how does that make you feel at the end of the day, like as a man, to your kind of man's heart? How does it make you feel to know that you're working in an area that is having such a big impact on people's lives and is also such a good fit for you and your mission?
Yeah, to me, it's a feeling of alignment. And to me, alignment, and I actually wrote about this in the book, but alignment is, when we have so I like to use the metaphor of a key. So in life, we have these doors that we want to open. That may be our goals, our missions, the things that we want to create. Being in alignment are all the ridges of the key, and the ridges represent our beliefs, our actions, our behaviors, our thoughts, the environments, the people we surround, all the parts that make up our life. And the exciting thing is the problem is that if we're out of alignment internally, even if one ridge is out of alignment and we put that key in the door, there's no amount of force, screaming, yelling, pushing. I mean, we could exhaust ourselves.
Yeah.
And I've lost my keys more than once, so this is like real world stuff. Try to open that door.
Yeah.
And it leads to burnout. But when we're in alignment, sometimes we're just 1 or 2 or 3 notches away from being in alignment. What happens? We flick our wrist and the door opens. And so that feeling of being internally in alignment creates the external rewards that we're looking for. When as a society, we're taught the opposite. I always like to say, fulfillment attracts achievement, not the other way around.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and we've been taught to just chase achievement at the expense of our internal fulfillment. We get there, it's never enough, et cetera, et cetera. And so to me, there's no greater feeling than first doing that for myself, because I got to lead by example. I got to do the hard, messy work myself, and then being able to share that with others. And then recognizing that we're all on the same path. Nobody's above, nobody's below. If somebody else can do it, you can do it.
Yep.
And that's why we're here. And to create that impact and to receive, like, for example, when you write a book, you can get caught up in, I want to get this in the hands of as many people as possible.
Yeah.
With this book, I said I had to remind myself. And so the day of the book launch, I did a hike here in Arizona, and I left the book in a mountain. I said, listen, the mission is complete when one person has been impacted by it.
Yep.
And that's what I'm here for, because one person creates the ripple effect for the next person, and the next person, and the next person. And then that's how you get the numbers. But when you just try to impact numbers for the sake of numbers, you actually miss the people right in front of you. So that's just a long way of saying that there's nothing more fulfilling than being in alignment, being on purpose. And if you're not there, there's nothing wrong with you. Your circumstances are not who you are, but just remember you have the responsibility and the power to change those.
Man, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. Well, look, sir, I really appreciate you being on here. It's been a fantastic conversation, like I said, and I know the guys are going to get a lot out of this book. Tell you what, guys, head over to wolfandiron.com/Tommy Baker. That's wolfandiron.com/Tommy Baker. I'll link to his book. All this, there'll be plenty of information about how to get in touch with him in the show notes. And look, man, it's just been a great conversation, and I look forward to seeing you impact some other people out there.
Mike, right back to you. You're doing amazing work with all your brands, all your businesses, and I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, there you have it, men. I'd love to know what you thought about the episode. Feel free to reach out to me on any of my social media networks. And look, if you got something out of this, make sure another guy does too. Share the episode and make sure it gets in front of the guys that need to hear it the most. Until next time, keep your powder dry, and may a fair wind be always in your sails.